Welcome to today's lesson on lines, line segments, and rays. Today we're going to discuss how you can distinguish the difference between these different types of lines and rays. So let's go ahead and get started. We are going to begin today by discussing what a line is. Now remember, a line is represented by having arrows at either end of the line, and this represents that the line will move on infinitely in either direction. It's also important to remember that lines are always perfectly straight. They never have any curves or turns to them. Alright, so let's go ahead and discuss a line. When you're labeling a line, you can label it using any 2 points which the line passes through. For example, we can label this line AC because this line passes through both of these points. And to write the symbol, we would write our 2 points the line passed through, AC, with a picture of a line above it. And that lets us know that this is line AC. Now there are many other names for this line because we have more than 2 points. We could also call it line AB, BC, or even go in the other direction and call it line CB or BA. As long as we make sure that we label it correctly by putting our line symbol above it. Let's go ahead and discuss line segments. Line segments are very similar to lines. The difference is, instead of going on for infinity and being represented by arrows on either end, line segments have a clear beginning and end, and we mark those with end points. These dots that you see here that are represented by our letters are end points. So, from A to B is a line segment, and we would call that line segment AB. And we would write this very similarly to how we would write a line. However, a line is symbolized still with its arrows on either end to show that it's continuing on, whereas a line segment has a clear beginning and end. Lastly, let's discuss a ray. A ray starts at an end point and then continues on for infinity. Now, when we're writing the symbol for a ray, you always start with your end point. So we're going to list B first. And since the ray is moving past C, we're going to put C with our ray symbol above it. Now, if we were trying to label ray BA, we would label it as BA since we started with B, but our arrow would still be pointing to the right, representing a ray. Let's go through a few practice problems together. To start, I want you to identify a line in this diagram. Now there will be more than one to identify, but let's go ahead and start by looking for 2 arrows that would represent a line. Now as you can see, we have 1 arrow here and 1 arrow here representing a line. So we can choose any 2 points on this line to label it. We also have an arrow at this end and this end of this line. So we could also choose any 2 points from this line to label it as well. So let's go ahead and start with our first line and choose 2 points to label. Let's call this line RB. So I'm going to label RB and make sure I put the line symbol above it. Alright, let's go ahead and see if we can identify any line segments. So for line segments, we're going to be looking for any 2 points or end points that are within a line. So I'm going to look for 2 points. I'm going to use T and S because we have 2 endpoints that are on the same line. So I'm going to write T, S, and put my line segment symbol above this line segment. Now it's important to remember that there are many different line segments in this diagram. Any 2 endpoints within the same line can be labeled as a line segment. Lastly, let's discuss a ray. When searching for a ray on this diagram, we have 4 different options because we have 4 ends of lines that can reach out. So let's go ahead and start by finding an end point and we're going to start with our center point, which is R. So when we're labeling our array, we're going to make sure that we put R first because that's the end point on our array. Now we are going to move and we're going to do Rx for our array. So my next endpoint that I pass by is X, and then the array symbol is going to go directly above Rx. Let's take a moment to review what you've learned in today's lesson. Remember, a line will be represented by having arrows on either end of the line to represent that it goes on infinitely in either direction. A line also will always be flat and straight and never have any turns to it. When labeling a line, you're going to choose any 2 points on the line. For example, we can choose points P, S. So I will label P, S, and I will put the line symbol above it. Next, let's review line segments. Line segments are any 2 endpoints that are within a line. For example, P, W. This has a beginning point and an end point, so that represents a line segment. To write the symbol for a line segment, you're going to write your 2 endpoints, in this case P, W, with the line segment symbol above it. And lastly, we have a ray. A ray starts with an endpoint and ends with a line moving on in infinity. So let's go ahead and start with endpoint P, and we are going to have ray PS. So to write this, we start with our endpoint P, and it's moving in the direction of S, and we put our ray symbol above it.